Hi there. Today we are talking about defense. And what I mean by that is we're gonna talk about the hidden stat defense, but also all the other things that reduce damage taken. So we're gonna go over that one by one. I will explain you all the stuff. I will talk about effective health. And I hope with this video you will be able to understand better how you can itemize to save yourself from one-shots and so on. Keep in mind this is mostly focused around defense and not defensive actions or stuff that let you survive stuff. So I'm not gonna talk about things like auto revive or guts. I am more interested in this video to teach you to understand the concept of effective health, and what I mean by that we will see in a little bit. So let's go to the classroom. Alrighty, and now that we are in the classroom, we can start talking about everything. So what makes our tankiness, right? That is, first of all, we have our health. We have damage reduction, so we have defense, damage cut, we have buffs. Like, not every buff actually tells you how much you get right out of them, because the game is extremely vague. We also have Stout, which also reduces our damage taken. And then of course there's like minor sigils that can like influence stuff. So very important to note here, health is very straightforward, right? Defense is a hidden stat. It is not explained anywhere in the game, and I actually thought it would be more complicated. I did a lot of testing, and I got a lot of assistance for testing that with from Leo K. Rogue. So once again, thank you so much, Leo. I really appreciated the help with compiling the data and trying out all the different defense values. So defense actually works really straightforward in Relink compared to OG granblue. In Relink, 10% defense basically means you take 10% less damage. So every single character in the game has a base defense value of 0. So it's not like other games where you have like a defense value that scales with your like level and like it's a permanent stat and you get defense from gear. No, here defense, it is purely a percent based stat, and it starts out as 0. You have plus 30% defense, you take 30% less damage. You have minus 30% defense, you take 30% more damage. Really straightforward. So, with that out of the way, we can also go over all the other things really briefly. Damage cut works exactly the same. So 10 damage cut means 10% less damage taken. Buffs, right? Buffs usually just buff your defense. Even if they don't display like how much they buff, like Phantasmagoria, it actually buffs your defense by 30%, so Phantasmagoria makes it so you take 30% less damage. And then we have Stout. Stout, with your mastery tree up, you reduce damage by 30% as well. If you run Steel Nerves, that changes by another 15% if you have a max level Steel Nerves. But we have one thing right. Let's ask Mr. Kitty what I said in Sigil 101. Mr. Kitty, what did I say about sigils and multiplicators? Meowtipliers are king. Why do I do this? Okay, so as Mr. Kitty said, in my Sigil 101 video I said multiplicators are king. This is not the case for your damage reduction. In damage reduction, you do not want to have many multiplicators. In Sigil 101 I said, the more steps you have, the better, right? This is not the case with your defense. In defense, you want really high, big multiplicators and as little steps as possible. And now we will go over the math why that is. Okay, so let's go over the calculation of the damage you take. We will make very simple examples. So let's say an attack does 10,000 damage to us. Okay, so 10,000 is the damage you take without anything, like the enemy just hits you, you have no buffs, no anything. And now the way that our multiplicators work is, if you have 50% defense, that would be, we have 10,000, right? And then it would be multiplied by times 0.5. And that results in 5,000 damage. But now what happens if we add more things to it, right? So let's say we have 25% defense buff and 25 damage cut. What happens? So let's take it again, right? 10,000. And now we multiply it times 0.75. Multiply it again by 0.75. Okay, so if you multiplicate this 10,000 times 0.5 times 0.75, we actually get 5,625. Very close to Mr. Kitty. Okay, so as you can see, even though we have the total same percentage, right, if you combine it, like in the second example we had 2 times 25% damage reduction, it actually makes you take more damage in total. Because when you have the first multiplicated step, right, the times 7.75, you have like a number, right? But then it gets reduced from that number, which means the previous step basically makes the number smaller, right? And then the next one makes it smaller. So this works invertedly to the damage that I teach you about, right? And that is where things get interesting. Because if you take as example Stout, right? Stout, really strong. I've preached about it for a while now. Let's take Stout and we will take Steel Nurse. Okay, so let's take the Stout example. You have 10,000 and that gets multiplied by 0.7, right? Because Stout gives 30% damage reduction, and then Steel Nerfs adds, when you have Stout another 50% damage reduction. So that means we multiplicate it by 0.85. Because it actually does not add to your Stout. It adds another multiplicator. It's not an, like, it just doesn't just make your Stout reduce damage by 45%. It is 2 steps. So what do we get from this? 10,000 times 0.7 and then times 0.85. So this results in 5,950. So as you can see, more multiplicators is bad. And this works with everything. So basically, all the defense you have goes into the same defense stat. So if you get like defense from Garrison, from Stronghold, from Character Awakening Sigils, from buffs, all that compiles into one big defense stat. So if you have like 20% defense from one source, 20% defense from another source, and 30% defense from Phantasmagoria, you actually have 70% defense, which means it would result in 70% less damage taken, right? But basically everything else is a multiplicator. So there's some exceptions, like if you take, for example, damage cut, right? There's multiple ways to get damage cut. So let's take a look. Let's say we are using the captain, right?
Let's do it.
And we have the skill Phalanx. It does 40 to 70% damage cut, right? But we are using Crab Vestment Returns. So if you don't know Crab Vestment Returns, it grants you 10% damage cut. So what that actually means is you have say level 1 Phalanx, 40% damage cut, and then 10% damage cut from this. You actually have 50% damage cut. This also I can show you this really quick. If you can test it really easily if it like counts together, because damage cut applies in your buffs. Okay, let's see. If you look at the top left corner, right, we have the little shield icon with the 10 in it. That is the 10 damage cut I have from crab investment returns. Now, if I use level 1 phalanx, you will see the 10 will not be 40, it will turn into 50, because it combines the damage cut from both. So in this way, this is actually additive, and that is really, really good. So if you combine level 4 phalanx with investment returns, you actually have 80% damage cut, which is absolutely insane, because that means you only take 1/5 of the damage, right? Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about the formula basically, right? That would be damage taken. That's how it starts, right? Taken. And then multiplies effect. So we have like defense, D cut. I'm gonna shorten this. Stout. Art. And then we have also times steel nerves. Just gonna make this STN for steel nerves. And basically every single thing, right, is an individual step. It does not actually matter in which order you apply these. So it doesn't matter. I just want to show you damage taken. This is where everything begins, right? This is our base number. And then depending on which defense multipliers we have, all of this applies. So one after another. It doesn't matter in which order. It's just important that you understand that everything of these thingies are multiplicative. And if you want to get high defense, try to keep it to as little multiplicators as possible. Because as I said, more multiplicators means you lose more defense in each step. So try to get only 1 or 2, and then really high values, like Stout Heart maybe combined with like damage cut if your character has it, or like defense, right? So try to think about that. Obviously, if you just want to be really tanky, you can slap on as much defensive multipliers as you want. Just remember, it will lose value the more you different ones you have. So that is very different from damage. And now let's talk about health. So health is, for the most part, pretty straightforward. With health, we do not have many multiplicators, right? So what do we have when it comes to health? We have our flat character health. I'm gonna show this to the age, so that is character health. That is flat. That we get from like level ups and masteries and everything, right? And then we get health sigil. So this is another flat health, right? So these two combine. And after these two combined, then it applies multiplicators. So these two, I'm gonna do these in parentheses so you know that. Okay, I just switched my top because I had a black thingy on and it seems like to fuck over my tracking. Okay, back to the topic. Okay, so as I said, flat always applies first together, right? That is the same also in damage. And then we have our multiplicator status. Eaches, that is a sigil, right? And we have crab returns. Just gonna write crab here. So if you don't know what crab investment returns is, a lot of people seem to not know it. It is a sigil. Just gonna show you here real quick. It is a sigil that you get for collecting 41 of the crabs. So here you can see it. It gives us both 10% damage cut and 20% HP. So this is another multiplayer for us that we can get for health, right? So basically here, if you want to get a really high health value, we need a really high base health, right? So let's say we have 50,000 here. I mean, that's rather unrealistic, but I want simple numbers. And then if we have like level 45 eaches, right, that is 80% more health. And then we have crab vestment giving us another 20%. So if you do the math here, 50,000 times 1.8 times 1.2, we would end up with 108,000 HP if you combine this. Because as I said here again, unlike the damage reduction here, multiplicators are king again. So only in damage reduction, we do not want many multiplicators, but in everything else, pretty much we want more multiplicators. So as I said, eaches plus crab doesn't give plus 100%, it actually gives more because it's another step, right? Our health cap is actually 99,999. So this is the maximum health we can get at this current stage in the game. So I just wanted to demonstrate you here also multiplicators and light health, right, works really well off of each other. And now that we know all of this, we can start talking about effective health. So if you did not play too many other games, like experienced gamers probably know already about effective health. It is like all of these things that I'm teaching you here, these are common in a lot of games. So what is effective health? Effective health basically just means when you combine like all your defenses and stuff, how much damage can I actually take? So that is also why tank builds are actually a lot tankier, because people like they see me and I have 100,000 HP and maybe they have 40,000 HP, right? And like mathematically 40,000, right, would be and 100,000, it would be like 2.5 times as much health. But that's actually incorrect, because if you like apply defensive values like that a tank build usually has, that value becomes even more in terms of like how much more health you have access to. So let's go over how we calculate effective HP. So let's say we are using the terminus weapon, right? And we have 45,000 HP. This is our health. And now, how we calculate our effective health? It would be, first of all, we need to know how much damage reduction we have, right? So how do we figure out how much damage reduction we have? Let's take Stout and Steel Nerves as example for this. So let's say we have 100, we take 100 as a base number, and then we multiply it with Stout, that is 30% damage reduction, right? So we multiply that by 0.7, and then we apply Steel Nerves, that is 0.85. And you know, let's throw in Phantasmagoria for good measure. So we have a 30% defense buff as well. So we have another 0.7 multiplier. So what is this number here? Let's see. Calculator. 100 times 0.7 times 0.85 times 0.7. That is 41.65. So this is how much damage we end up taking, right? So this is the damage we take, 41.65% of the original damage. So if we took 15,000 damage, we would only take 41.65% of that 15,000 as damage. Now, how do we calculate our damage reduction, right? Very easy. We take the 100 and we subtract the 41.65. So this is 58.35. This is our damage reduction. And now how do we calculate our effective health with this? So the formula will be 45,000 divided by, in parentheses, 100% minus our number down here, 58.35%. Close this, and we will calculate this. I'm gonna calculate this real quick. 55,000 divided by parentheses 100% minus 8.35%, and we calculate this. So now we get a number. This number, it is really big, and I cannot write it very easily in here. Let's see if we can squeeze it. So that would be okay. So this would be our effective health. 108,043. That would be our effective health. And now that we know this, we can calculate the raw number of damage that we can take, right? Let's take Bahamut Versa example. So Bahamut Versa, it does with the ground stem attack 15,197 damage without anything. Oh, let me write this down here. Might be blocking this, but it is what it is. So this is the raw damage we take from Versa. Now what we can do is we can calculate how much more hits we can take, right? So if we take 54,000 HP and we divide this by 15,197, we get 2. I have to write over Mr. Kitty here. 2.96 attacks. So we would survive 2 attacks, right? And the third attack, it would kill us because we have just a little bit too low HP to make it over 3. So the number before the point is basically how many hits we can take before dying. Now if you apply this very same thing to our active HP with our defensive buffs, we would do the same, right? We take the 108,043 divided by 15,197, and we end up with, let me calculate real quick, 108,043 divided by 15,197, 7.10. So as you can see, now we can survive 7 hits in terms of if you calculate the raw HP values. With this, you can basically do the math without having to check, if I use equipment, how much damage do I take then? Like you could do it that way too, right? Like you take your defensive stuff and you see how much damage you take. And then you could just divide the reduced damage by your HP, right? And you would also get like a number, right? But you can also just do the calculation without having to go through the process of doing that. You can also just use the raw HP values by calculating effective HP, and then you know exactly how much damage you can take. So, like with this number, I have 108,000 HP at my disposal. That means you can, if you already played the game without defenses or anything, right, and okay, this attack does 50,000 damage to me, so I can survive 2 times the hit, like without having to take into consideration your damage reduction, right? because when you have to calculate every single damage, right, it would be very confusing. So you can kind of use this basically for that. And that is basically effective HP. Yeah. Alrighty, that gets us to the end of the video. Sadly, the last part with effective health, I had to re-record, so you noticed there was sound missing sadly, and my thingy was going all over the place because I was back at my black top and it made the tracking weird again, and I learned how to speak without opening my mouth. I really apologize that I just didn't notice that, and I'm too lazy to re-record it, so deal with it. Yeah, that's it for the video. I hope this helped you. If you would like to see more things explained from me, let me know what you would like me to explain, and maybe I'll make a video on it. So yeah, that's it everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye bye.